Hi geographers, and welcome to the next unit, which is our population unit. Now this one is quite a long one, probably one of the longest we do in higher geography, and there's quite a lot in it, but as more things we can break that down and keep them a lot more simple. So there's three different areas that you're going to need to look at. And these areas are the methods of data collection, so how we actually get population data in the first place, and the problems that we have or interact with when we actually try and collect it. So that's part one. The second part is looking at the consequences of population structure. And then the third part is different types of migration, mainly forced and voluntary. As always, what does this really mean and what do you really need to know? So you need to know what a census is. That is the main way that we collect data, understanding a census and how that is carried out within a normally developed world country, and the other ways, there are some other ways that we collect data as well, and how that is done. You also then need to know the alternative. In a developing country, what are the challenges with data collection? You can have these challenges in a developed country as well, but they tend to be a lot more pronounced in a developing country. For population structures, you need to know basically two case studies or two different examples. You need to know about a country that has a rapidly aging or declining population. This is one where the population is getting older and older, or is actually starting to shrink and get back and grow back. We need to understand why this is happening, what are the impacts of that, and some of the strategies that actually maybe put in place to reverse that. You also then need to do the reverse for a country whose population structure is rapidly growing. There is quite a lot of these countries for both about, and you normally would be best trying to identify them as a case study. So for the likes of a developed country that has got an aging or declining population, you may want to look at Japan, that's a real famous one. And for a rapidly growing country, South Sudan, so it was one of the fastest growing countries in 2019, so maybe using them as one of your case studies. What are the impacts of a rapidly growing country, and what challenges are they going to face in the future? The final part is looking at different types of migration. So you mainly have two types of migration, and these are voluntary and forced migration. Voluntary migration, as you can imagine, is where people choose to move between one area and another. The case study we've used for the last couple of years is Eastern Europeans moving to Western Europe, so like France and the UK. It's getting a bit out of date now in terms of Brexit and everything happening, but the underlying principles still remain the same. While the facts and figures may not be relevant anymore, the underlying principles of what happens when people move from one area to another and what impact that has in the area they have moved to, so they can actually apply to any case study that might become more relevant. The other case study is one that tends to dominate the news in certain years. Not this year, obviously, that's been other things. And that is forced migration. Forced migration is where people tend to have to move because they're fleeing war, persecution, or a natural disaster is hit. You need to understand the reasons for them moving, have an idea of what's happening in a case study for them to move or having to leave themselves, and the impacts on the country they've left behind and the impacts on the country they're moving towards. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you need to do in this topic. It is a big one, but as I say, keep it small, keep it chunked, and you'll be just fine. So enjoy the topic, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.